Hey everybody, welcome back to Harmon Garage. I'm Aaron. Today we are going to keep going on Project Hotshot. As you saw in the last video, we got her all cut down and cleaned up. And now we're going to get working on the bed to get ready to test fit it. And a couple other cool things in this video. Did y'all like the last video? Hope so. I enjoyed making it. But we're gonna come outside here to the bed and start prepping it to test fit it. And then once we get it test fitted, mounts made and all that stuff, then we'll pull it back off and clean everything up and paint it, and then we'll set it back on. So got the bed out here standing up. I gotta cut these old mounts off because the frame rail of the truck is the same width as these rails on the bed, and these mounts they got stick out probably about an inch if I had to guess. And the way they got stuff stacked in here to level the bed out on whatever truck it was on, that's not going to work for our application. So I'm going to cut these off, clean this up, and probably going to bust the pressure washer out and clean that thing up a little bit because I'm overworking with filth. So I'm gonna get all my stuff drug out here and we'll get to cutting. All right, I decided I'm gonna go ahead and power wash this and clean it up before I start working on it. Just get all the spiders and cobwebs and stuff off of it and have it clean before I start cutting and whatnot. So we're just gonna wash it down real quick and keep on moving. Got my #1 tool of choice when it comes to cutting. Now they just welded it on the inside and then on the back side. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these off, and I'll let you guys watch while I cut one off, and then I'll just go ahead and do the rest of them. And then once we get them all cut off, we'll come back and clean them up. Alright, we got that one off. I'll cut off the other 3 now, and then we'll come back and clean it up. Alright, I got all 4 of them old brackets cut off. As you can probably see, I got a bunch of weld left on here. I did really good not getting into the framing on this bed at all. I only cut into welds and the brackets, so that's good. Now I'm going to take a 60 grit flapper wheel. I'm just going to go back and cut all these, or take all these welds off and smooth it out. Alright, got that all ground back nice and flat. Got my edge back, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and grind down the other 3, and then we'll start prepping the frame to test fit the bed. Alright, I got the brackets all cut off the bed, ground and cleaned up, and ready to start working on the frame to make it level for the bed to sit on. And I think I've decided I'm just going to put that C-channel back on, but obviously shorter pieces of it and make it look cleaner. So I'm gonna get a measurement from the back of this rivet to the front of this rivet, and then I'm gonna cut my pieces, lay them across there and weld them in, and then once I get that done, I'll be able to measure that and everything, and then I'll figure out what I need back here And then I'm gonna need a shim here for it to so it sits on it, because I'm gonna try to mount the bed. I am gonna mount the bed back here, right here, and then up here. So that'll make it nice and solid for the gooseneck hitch that's in it and towing and whatever else. So I'm gonna get my measurements. I'm gonna cut the old C-channel, clean it up, and then we're gonna put it back on there. All right, well, I haven't been filming a whole lot today because I've been doing a lot of kind of not pertinent stuff, but I've been grinding. And when I say that, I don't mean I've been busting butt getting a lot of work done, which I have been doing that too, but when I say grinding, I mean I've literally been grinding with a grinder. So I went ahead and got our C-channel trimmed down to size, put back on. Both sides are welded up, ready to go. I came back here. I got new blocks of C-channel back here. I cut all that mess that used to be on the frame rail off. I went and took measurements on the bed, put this C-channel where we were gonna need it. Cut all this crap off, ground it down. I don't know if you guys saw it before, I think I mentioned it, but the back of the frame looked like a rabid dog had chewed it off. Somebody got after it with a torch and just hacked the crap out of it. So I took some measurements from different places and got it to where I could make it the same on both sides, and I trued it up the best I could. So I got it in there and got it all ground down and cleaned up, and so it looks a lot better. That's one of those things that you're never gonna see. Once the bed's on it, you'll never see this frame again. But if anybody else down the line decides to go and do the same thing that I'm doing, if this truck gets sold and somebody wants to take that hotshot bed off and put a flat bed on it, or put a full width dually rear end underneath it and put a regular bed on it, or whatever the case may be, I don't want it to be to them like it is to me. Like, I'm looking at this truck like, what in the heck did these people do? I mean, this is subpar stuff. And when somebody else goes to take this truck apart down the road, if that ever happens, I want them to be like, dang, this guy did a good job. He did quality work, because that's what I like to do. So we've got everything cut nice, square. All the welds look decent. Frames trued up at the back. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do here, I got this piece of angle iron that's pretty stout. I'm laying it across both my pieces, the C-channel that I welded back on there. I'm gonna go ahead and take my level and set it on there. And you guys can see that bubble. Apparently this morning I learned how to measure, because it don't get any better than that. The frame's a little bit different at the back than it is at the front, so I had to kind of accommodate for that to get it level, but it came out perfect, which I'm happy with. So when we put that bed on, I don't have a lot of room back there, but I'm gonna do my best, like between this spring stop and this shackle mount, to put a mount back here. I'm gonna make some shims that sit here, and I'm gonna put a mount directly above the axle, since it has the gooseneck hitch there. And then I'm gonna put another mount for the bed up here as close to the front as I can get it. That'll give us 6 solid mounting points on the bed, which is essentially 2, but probably 4 more than it had, because the mounts they had on there, I did a little bit of cutting, but I basically just knocked them off with a hammer. So we're gonna have good, solid, well-built mounts to hold it on here. And then we're gonna build that hitch up like I showed you guys. And I'm not going to worry about this truck when it leaves here and goes down the road, because they'll be able to hook a dang mobile home up to the back of it and tow it to Kentucky if they want to. So I also, there was a piece of C-channel in here with a box and some more braces, and well, it's right here. This conglomeration of what in the heck did they do was down in here, so I got it all cut out and ground down. It's been a full day of work between washing that bed and cutting it up this morning and doing this, but I didn't film a lot of it because there's a lot more that I want to get in this video, and getting the bed set on it is one of the things. So I'm trying to get work done. It wouldn't have been all that exciting for that, seeing me grind all that and put that C-channel on there. So I'm gonna grab a can of spray paint, touch up all the welds on the bare metal, and then we're gonna get back onto it. Next thing I'm gonna do is shorten the drive shaft. Now, this is something that you normally take to a driveline shop to get done. It costs about 100, 150 bucks. You call them ahead of time, ask them where they want the measurement from. You take the measurement, you go drop the drive shaft off, you go back, you pick it up, it's ready to go, you put it in the truck. Well, when I lived in Texas, I had the best drive shaft guy in the industry. His name's Tony. He works at TNT Truck Parts in Lancaster. So if you're in the Dallas area and you need a drive shaft done, there's nobody better. He's amazing, does great work, gets it done quick, price is reasonable. I mean, I wouldn't take a drive shaft to anybody else. He's really that good. That being said, now that I moved to the middle of nowhere, it's an hour plus drive to drop the drive shaft off, hour plus drive to go pick it up. I don't know who I got working on it, things like that. So I actually gave Tony a call and said, hey, is there a way that I can do this drive shaft myself in my shop and get it close enough that it's not going to vibrate and everything's going to be okay? And he basically told me that there is a way that I can do it, and he explained it all out to me and told me what to do. So as I learn how to do it my first time, I'm going to teach you guys how to do it, or show you what not to do, probably. But so I got the drive shaft back in the truck, and I'll show you guys how we're going to take our measurement. I got the drive shaft back in the truck. There's what they call a witness mark or a wear mark. You can see where the slip yoke on this used to ride, and with it being there, that's the center where it likes to sit. So it should have movement either way. So that's where I want it. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the center of this U-joint, the center of this yoke here, to the flat on my yoke on the rear end, and take my measurement. So we'll do that there. Halfway through that to that flat is 32 inches. Y'all remember that for me, because I'm going to forget. Now that I got that measurement, actually, we're just going to do this and write 32 inches on there. Okay, so I'm going to pull the drive shaft back out, and then I'll show you what to do next. Okay, I got my drive shaft back out, and I got it set up on my drive shaft measuring stands. They may look like the C-channel that I cut off of this truck, but they're not. Trust me, they're drive shaft measuring stands. So now what we're going to do is we're going to measure from the center point of the front U-joint, like we did before, to the center point of the back U-joint, which would be the same as the flats that we measured in the truck. And we have 57.5 inches. So if you take 57.5 minus 32, you get 25.5, which makes sense because we took 25 inches out of the frame. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go right in the middle of our weld here where this yoke welds on, and I'm going to mark 25.5. Right there. And then we'll take this over, put it in the chop saw, and I'm going to cut this tube off right there where our mark is. You guys got your earplugs and your safety glasses on? I'll give you a second. Okay, here we go. Alright, I don't know if you guys could tell or not, but when you're cutting something like this, you don't want to just grab that saw and hog down through it. You just want to kind of take it and rest it on the metal, hold the trigger, and just let it do its thing. And just let it work, and if it takes 5 minutes to cut through, so be it. But if you get on it and start hogging it, it'll make that blade flex, and then your cut won't be straight. So you just want to just take your time, take it easy. Now the next thing I'm going to do, on this end where this yoke is, if I had a lathe, I could put it in a lathe and cut this weld out right here and it'd be easy, but I don't have a lathe. So this yoke pounds into this drive shaft roughly 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go back a little bit more than 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to cut this tube off again. And then when I cut through this weld to get this yoke out, I'll be able to look in the end and see and make sure I'm not getting too deep and going through anything I don't want to go through. So make sure I leave myself plenty of room so I don't cut into that yoke. Same thing. Put a little bit of pressure on the saw and let it do its job. Now if you look down inside there, you can see that lip right there. And that's what I was talking about, the yoke going inside of it. So the end of it's down maybe a half of an inch, but we got at least a full inch here. So that thing goes in, that yoke goes in there between half and 3/4 of an inch. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over and get a little cutoff wheel, and I'm going to get right on this weld and just keep working it real slow, real slow, real slow all the way through until I get through the weld. I only want to get through the weld. I don't want to get into the yoke at all. So if I do just a little bit, it shouldn't hurt anything, but I'm going to try my best not to. So I'll go over there. I'll set you guys up on a time lapse so you can see what I'm doing, but I'm just going to keep working my way down through that. And then once I get close, I'll probably take and relief cut the side of this here, and that should let that open up so it can come off easier, because that's pretty much a press fit. Like you gotta, I've seen Tony do it before, and you gotta pound this yoke into that shaft. So we'll get it all set up, and we'll get this yoke off of here. Okay, I actually impressed myself a little bit, but I was able to get that ring off, and I didn't get into that yoke at all. So now I'm going to try to clean this up a little bit more. At least I'll go around and check, make sure I got the same depth all the way around, and then I'll just smooth this even where these welds are with a flapper wheel, and that should get us right where we need to be. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, and then I'll get back with you guys here in a minute. Okay, now that I got my yoke all cleaned up and ready to go, I'm just going to take a rat tail file and deburr the inside of my tube here. Now I'm just going to take a dead blow hammer. This part of the yoke that slides into the shaft is slightly bigger than this tube, so it's a press fit to get in there, to say the least. But I'm going to kind of try to get that started the best that I can. Then I'm going to take a dead blow hammer. Maybe. Oh, and I need to make sure that my yokes are lined up on both ends also. So, get those on the same plane. He wasn't joking when he said it was a tight fit. I think maybe because I got it going in crooked, it's giving me issues. So I'm going to take a break for a second, and then we'll get back to getting this in there. Alright, got my yoke back in, set flush, it's all cleaned up. Now I'm going to go and stick the drive shaft back in the truck just like it is, and then I'm going to jack the rear end up so the tires are off the ground and we can spin it, and then I'll bring you guys back in. I'm not doing nothing special, I'm literally just putting the drive shaft back in. Alright, I'll bring you guys up in here close. I have not welded on the drive shaft at all yet, but I got it bolted back in the truck and it's all the way in. Now what I did is I went and got an angle finder. Well, I had it, but I grabbed it and I set it on the drive shaft. Now because I took 25.5 inches out of the drive shaft and made it that much shorter, you don't want your drive shaft angle to be more than 2 to 3 degrees because it'll prematurely wear out your U-joints. So you guys can see right there, I got about 9 degrees of angle right now. That's a little bit much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up the bolts over here on my hanger bearing or carrier bearing, whichever you want to call it. And then I'm going to put washers in there in between the bracket and the hanger bearing itself as shims, and I'll drop that hanger bearing down. When I drop the hanger bearing down, that's going to make our angle better. So I'm going to go ahead and see what we need to do, how much shim we need to put in there to get that where it needs to be, and then I'll come back with you. Okay, I got my carrier bearing shimmed down a little bit, put all new bolts in it with lock nuts, got that all taken care of. Now I didn't explain this when I was explaining finding your right angle, but it was at 9. I ideally need to be at 2 to 3. So I'm setting it at 5. Well, it's kind of in between 5 and 6. And you go, well, if it's supposed to be 2 to 3, why are you setting it at 5 to 6? The reason is because that hotshot bed I'm putting on here weighs a decent amount. And once I get the weight of that bed on there, it's going to bring the frame down closer to the rear end, which is going to make my drive shaft angle come straighter. So I don't know exactly where it's going to be. I'll check it once I get the bed on, but I'm leaving some room because those rear springs are going to accept some weight, which is going to bring the rear end up, which is going to make our angle straighter. So right now I got it at 5-ish. I'm going to leave it there, and like I said, after we get the bed on, then I will be able to check it at ride height with normal weight on it and see where it's at. So that's what we're doing. Now it's time to start finishing up this drive shaft. Now that I got that all set up where I need it, I got the rear end jacked up so I can spin the drive shaft. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my welder and I'm going to put 4 tacks, 1 on each side, and then I'll show you how we true it up and balance it. Now I got that all done. I got a magnetic base. Dial caliper stand here. Okay, I know you guys can't see that, and I can't see it the greatest either, but that's where I needed it to make it work. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this drive shaft, and I want to be within 5 thousandths all the way around. It don't work very good when your dial caliper moves. Okay. It's close. We're going to have to do a little bit of adjusting on it, but it's close right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and weld it. And I'm going to go ahead and weld it, and then there's ways that you can true it up to bring it into spec. Helps weld when you got a ground. Alright, that should do it. Don't really like that part of the weld right there, but it's got good penetration. It just looks bad. It'll work. Alright, so now I'm going to set my caliper back up. Alright, I'll set that to 0. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go around real slow. right there, it gets quite a bit over 0, over 5. So I'm gonna move this out of the way. I'm gonna take my torch, my little torch here, and I'm gonna heat up this spot that's way out, right next to the weld, and I'm gonna get it cherry red. Really need to go get some torch tanks, like for my actual torch, because this don't like being upside down. So what I'm going to do, I know where that spot is, so I'm just going to turn it to the side here. Not going to make it easy for you guys to see, but it'll make it easier for me to do what I got to do. So I'm going to heat this spot up cherry red, right next to my weld here. Alright, now once you get it red, you're going to take a rag with some water on it, and you're going to quench it. What you're doing is shrinking the metal. That's going to pull that spot in, which is going to help true it up. Might not have gotten red, but it got plenty hot. Alright, now that's going to pull that in. We'll let it sit there and cool off for a minute, and then I'll run the dial caliper over it again, and we'll see what happens. Okay, I did the process with the torch and quenching it 2 more times in 2 different spots, and we got her to where she's within 5 thousandths all the way around. So, check, drive shaft's done. So we're going to move on to the next thing, which is going to be the exhaust. I got a muffler. It's going to be loud. And we're going to make our own turn down out of the old exhaust. So I'll go through that and we'll get that done. Okay, so I got this old piece of the exhaust here. What I did is I took my level, and there's a seam on the exhaust pipe. It goes all the way down, so that's straight. So I took my level and lined it up on that seam. Then I took a marker over here and marked that. So now I got my angle that's going to come to turn down, and then I got my tip square with the exhaust, which is going to be square with the ground. So it's going to turn it down exactly how I want to. So I'm going to take and cut that on the bandsaw, and then I'll show you guys the muffler and we'll get it put in the truck. Alright, so here's what we got going on with the exhaust. That would be a knockoff Series 10 Flowmaster, which is basically an expansion chamber. And Got my piece of the old exhaust that I cut off to a turn down. So I'll clean up and weld around the muffler, front and rear, and then I'm gonna get an exhaust hanger and I'll put it right here. So basically I'm just gonna sand that down and weld it. We'll put the hanger on. Check, exhaust will be done. All right, the exhaust is all on. I got it as straight as I could, and once the bed's on it, the bed sticks down lower than the cab according to the measurements I've taken, so you'll never see it. Got the muffler welded in, got that welded in, got my hanger. Now you can't put an exhaust system on without firing it up and see what it sounds like. So we're gonna throw the fuel tank back in so we can start it. We'll fire this thing up. Let it warm up for a second. I'll give it a couple revs. Well, you wanted it loud, and it's definitely that. So all I got left to do is that brake line, put the shorter brake line in, and then we'll be ready to set this bed on here. Alright, I replaced the rubber brake hose that goes from the splitter on the rear end up to this hose, or this line, and I put my old line that I had in here, that was in here originally, back in. So what I'm going to do now is line these two lines up, and I'm going to cut them both, but I'm going to leave a little bit extra on or I'm going to take out a little extra because I got to put a union in there, and I got to have a little bit of room for my union, so I don't want them to be cut in the same spot. And there's some pretty crazy bends in the back of the line back there, so if I cut it a little bit too short, I'll be able to straighten the bend out a little bit and it'll still be long enough. Got that one cut. Come back just a little bit. Cut this one. Right. Got both of those cut. Got about 25 inches of brake line taken out of there. So I'm gonna go get my ends that I'm gonna put on here, and then we'll reflare it. Okay, I got 2 new ends. Go ahead and put these on, move them back a little ways so they're not in the way when I flare it. Like so. And then this is a 1/4 inch brake line. So pull out my stuff here and everything. If you guys have never used one of these brake flaring tools before, they're not exactly easy until you learn how to use them, but everything's marked on here for what size line it's going to be. So you put your bracket on, and you take this deal goes inside the line, but you take it and use the thickness of the top of it to measure how far you need to leave your line out. So I did that. Now I'll tighten this all down. Put my thing in there. Then you take this U piece here. Slide that over it. Make sure everything's straight, and then you take and tighten this down until it pushes your piece that goes inside the line all the way flat. And you loosen it back up, slide it out of the way, slide your little piece out, put this back in the line, just the pointy part, and then tighten that all the way down. And now you got a double flare. Just like that. That side's done. Now we're going to do the same thing to this one. Slide that in there. Slide this over this. that back out. That's down in there. Grab our union. Got that on there. Now we'll just tighten our line down. So I'm going to get that tightened down, and then I'm going to take the original clips that are on the original line for the back, put the bolts back in them, and it'll be just like it was when we started. Alright everybody, I've been thrashing on this thing all day. We got quite a bit done. Sorry I rushed through that last segment with the brake line and the union. I was bent over in an awkward way and my back's not as young as I think I am. So I didn't mean to rush through it, I was just trying to get it done. But hotshot is ready for the bed. I mean, the only thing from the cab back that I haven't finished is the wiring for the rear lights. And I'm gonna wait and do that later on because there's lights up in the headache rack on the bed and then the lights in the back. So once I get the bed, once we test fit the bed, we're gonna put it on. That way I can take measurements and figure out how I'm gonna mount it and all that. And once I get all that done, then I'm gonna pull it back off and then we'll do whatever we need to do on the frame for the mounts and on the bed for the mounts, and I can weld stuff on and drill holes for bolts and whatever else I got to do. And then we want to paint the front of the bed and the back of the cab before we put the bed on permanently, so then when we go and paint the truck, it's not crappy on the back of the cab and the front of the bed, and the rest of the truck's got fresh paint and looks brand new. So the bed's going on, we got to test fit it is what we're doing. And I need my buddy to come over with his tractor to pick it up and put it on the frame. And I don't think the ceiling in my shop is tall enough to set the bed on in here for the tractor boom to go up and all that stuff. So I wanted to get the truck back together where I could fire it up and drive it out and we could put the bed on outside. So I got it back to that point. Like I said, everything's done but the wiring. And wiring at this point is not a big deal. All the hard work back here is done. So that's gonna wrap it up. I really wanted to test fit the bed this video, but me and my buddy couldn't get together at the same time to use the tractor. He's been busy, so I got everything done that I could so we didn't have to push the truck around and stuff when he could make it over here. And I want to finish this video up, and we haven't got together to get the bed put on yet. So, but still a lot of good content here. Hope y'all enjoy it. That's going to do it for this video. If you're subscribed, thank you. Please share. If you're not subscribed, why don't you go ahead and ding dong, hit that little button. Maybe even hit the bell so it tells you when I got new videos coming out. I got a lot of comments on the last video of cutting the frame down, and I want to say thank you for that too. One, for all the comments. Two, I didn't get any criticism about cutting frames or how I did it or anything else, and I appreciate it. I mean, negative comments are still comments, but I'm just a positive person and don't really want to deal with it. So I appreciate the fact that everybody left nice comments. Hit the like button. You guys do what you do. I'll keep doing what I do. Y'all have a good one, and we'll see you next time.